So, sir, we are starting now. We still
Yeah,
have
sure.
time, but people have joined on Facebook as well.
Okay.
Namaste and good afternoon. Welcome to very special session of NIICE on a very important topic of today. Iran-Israel is stuck in mad doctrine. We are all aware that Israel and Iran conflict stems from ideological and strategic differences dating back to 1979 Iranian Revolution, when Iran cut ties with Israel and began supporting groups opposing it. This has evolved in a proxy war, with Iran backing Hezbollah, Hamas, and other militias, while Israel targets this group and Iran's nuclear program. The decade of 2020s saw further escalations, with series of explosions targeting Iranian nuclear and missile sites, and assassination of key figures like Mohsin Fahrezadeh in 2020. The 2023 Gaza war, following Hamas attack on Israel, saw Iran assisting Hamas, intensifying the conflict with drone and missile strikes in 2024. The conflict transitioned from proxy war to direct military confrontation in 2025, marking a significant escalation. President Trump, in his second term, announced negotiations with Iran to limit its nuclear program, setting a 60-day deadline for a deal, expiring on 12th June 2025. The White House emphasized zero enrichment on a non-negotiable goal, a shifting from earlier US position allowing limited enrichment under the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. The talks were framed as a last-ditch effort to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, with Trump warning of consequences if no agreement was reached. The 60-day deadline expired on 12 June 2025 with no agreement. Iran's refusal to accept zero enrichment and the US hardline stand led to a stalemate. Israel, viewing the talk as a delay tactic by Iran, on June 13, 2025, launched Operation Rising Lion, a surprise attack targeting key Iranian nuclear and military facilities, including Fardo, Natanz, and Isfahan. The operation involved targeting assassination of top Iranian military leaders, nuclear scientists, and politicians, including Ali Samkhaneh, who was overseeing nuclear talks with the US and airstrikes on nuclear and military facilities, destroying air defense. Report indicates that killing of IGRC commander Hosseini Islami and other leaders with civilian casualty reported. Iran retaliated with missiles and drone attack on Israel, targeting military sites and cities, with Israel reporting casualties, including civilians. On June 22nd, which is today, the US escalated its involvement by striking 3 Iranian nuclear sites, a move confirmed by US President Donald Trump, who claimed key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Trump has also warned Iran against retaliation, stating on Twitter or X, any retaliation by Iran against the US will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed tonight. It is uncertain where this war is leading to, but what is certain is that there will be massive destruction on both sides. Ladies and gentlemen, it is in this context we're holding today's discussion. To speak on very important topic of today, we have Ambassador Anil Trigunayat. Ambassador Anil Trigunayat is a visiting fellow at NIICE, and he specializes on international relations and diplomacy. His core areas of interest and expertise are trade, investment, and economic diplomacy, and takes a special interest in development in Middle East, Africa, and Russia. He is currently the president of MIICCIA, Chamber of Commerce and Industry. As a member of Indian Foreign Service, he has served in Indian mission in different countries around the world, and he has also served in Economic West Asia and North Africa and Council Division of Ministry of External Affairs of India. He also served as Director General, Joint Security for the Gulf and Haj Division in MEA, New Delhi. Thereafter, he worked as Deputy Chief of Mission in the rank of Ambassador in Embassy of India in Moscow. Prior to his superannuation in May 2016, he served as Ambassador of India to Jordan and Libya and High Commissioner to Malta. He is a postgraduate in physics from Agra University and Kumaon University, and also have studied Russian history, culture, and languages from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. As a visiting fellow, he conducts research on WTA and regional trading blocks. At the Oxford University, he is member of All India Management Association, Delhi Management Association, as well as Oxford and Cambridge Society of India and Association of Indian Diplomat, which is a former Indian diplomats. He is distinguished fellow at Vivekananda International Foundation, apart from being a board member of Peaceful Mind Foundation. He is also the honorary member of International Trade Council Brussels and honorary advisor to BRICS Chamber of Commerce. Ambassador Trigunayat, please make your remarks in 20 to 25 minutes, which will be followed by questions and answers. The program is streaming live in several Facebook pages and social media like Twitter and YouTube. Please feel free to share your questions. We'll try our best to share it with the speaker. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. For this kind invitation to share my thoughts at a very, very difficult period in the international relations and diplomacy. You have very nicely summed up the dateline of the various events starting from 1979. And why I have put the topic as MAD syndrome is because this is precisely what both Iran and Israel have been suffering with at least since 1979. As most of you know that in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, we had the Cold War going on. And during the Cold War, you may know, many of you, that Iran, Israel, and Saudi Arabia all were within the US ambit. They were all on that side, part of the CENTO, CETO, and others. And therefore, when 1979, we had the Islamic Revolution in Iran, that's when nearly everything changed. And Iran, of course, is a Shia country, as you know, majority, and they were the kind of Islamic Brotherhood, Muslim Brotherhood, the credentials. They were seen as exporting that kind of an Islam, which created sort of a big concern among other Sunni countries, especially with Saudi Arabia and the other Sunni countries in the region. On the other hand, at the same time, because of the Palestinian issue, Israel and the Jews became a major target. Very often, Iran in the past also claimed that Israelis do not have a right to exist, even as a state. And therefore, both have been really considering each other as an existential threat. And it is in that context that they have continued to fight each other ideologically. They have fought each other clandestinely. They have fought each other through proxies and in other ways as well. Now we are looking at this has been going on for a very, very long time. But both Iran and Israel are extremely strategic. Israel today, at least in the region, is the most strongest army. But it has a very major problem with regard to the issue of Palestine, which it refuses to resolve. It considers everything, every demand for their autonomy, for their statehood, as some kind of a terror outfits. And therefore, they continue. What did Iran do in the meantime? Iran, as you know, has been having problems until very recently, in fact, till about 2 years ago, with Saudi Arabia and all the other Arab countries, especially the Sunni countries. And so they also had a war with Iraq in the 80s. And that was again, that was an 8-year-old war, which was again mostly flamed by the United States at that time to contain Iran. And then 2001, 1999, we have seen these other different wars that are happening in the region. But Iran continued to develop its, I would say, its deterrence potential to the extent possible in that. And it remained under tremendous sanctions from all the countries from the West. And it continued to develop its relations both with Russia and China in the bargain. Now, what we have seen is that while Iran really developed its nuclear potential, it's a very rich oil and gas country which has a tremendous deposits. Its strategic location is in the Indian Ocean and the Arabic Sea and the Persian Gulf is extremely important. And it had, despite being under sanctions for 2, 3 decades, it has been having problems uh, in reaching out to the West, but at the same time, it continued to play its part in the region. What did it do? It decided to work on creating some kind of proxies, and therefore getting an asymmetric advantage in the region, as we call as 4H. The one you all must have heard recently, Houthis in Yemen. Then you have Hezbollah, which was one of the biggest and most powerful armies, and they were, of course, conducted supported by Iran. And they had Syria. Assad was supportive of Iran all through, and therefore they had the land route also along with that. And then you had Hamas, which was in Gaza, which was created in 1980s. And so Iran continued to have relations with them, and over time, as the more and more Arab countries became somewhat, I would say, little less concerned about the Palestinian cause, Iran continued to champion that cause because it also diplomatically provided it with a lot of heft in dealing with things. Because Palestinian issue remains very sensitive for the people in the Middle East as well as for the world. So it's very critical that this issue is resolved, and that's an underlying problem between Israel and all the countries in the Arab world. But we have seen in the past few years that things have been changing quite fast. We have seen that America, which has been the arbiter of security in the region, especially for all these Arab countries, has been distracted towards Indo-Pacific in its contestation against China. And therefore, more and more countries in the region began to feel that it was no longer interested in the region. Moreover, United States also emerged as a major uh, producer of oil and gas. In that sense, it also became a competitor to the regional major economies like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iraq, and others. And therefore, they also started looking for other countries for partnership, trying to find some kind of a modus vivendi among themselves so that there is a much less uh, conflict and they could at least find some minimum uh, program where they can work and collaborate together. And that's when we saw that Saudi Arabia and Iran patched up their differences after so many years, or decades rather, and started working together on that. This was with the help of Iraq, Oman, and finally by China. This has held out very well. Then, once that happened, that means the rest of the countries also normalized their ties with Iran. And we also saw the Turkey, which is a very major power, also trying to normalize its relations with Saudi Arabia and all of this. Now, while this was happening in this part, President Trump in his first term was very keen to somehow integrate Israel into the Middle East, with which Arab countries, especially, with whom he had fought so many wars. 1948, then you had 1956, then 67, then 73. All these wars in which Israel had won hands down without any problem. So Israel also got very emboldened by its power, by its technological prowess. It has, of course, has got several achievements to its credit, but then it has also started getting a more ultra rightist kind of government, which found no place for negotiations or for having any of these the talks with the Palestinians. Oslo Accords that happened, they were just allowed to simmer away. There was nothing really was moving in that sense. And then we heard that after that Saudi Arabia was almost on the verge of normalizing ties in the way the Abraham Accords happened with UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan. So that was the window for Israel into the Arab world. That is held quite significantly. It has worked out very well in the recent past. But then we see here going forward that people were thinking that, especially the Palestinians, who were really looking for some kind of a voice, and nothing was being heard in any case except in a very uh, in a very casual manner, I would say. It would just form a part of various talks and put in that, but there was nothing substantive was being done. And so then when they heard, especially when we had the G20 summit in New Delhi in 9 September 2023, at that time, the countries signed for IMEC, India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. And at that time, there were statements coming from the Saudi leadership that they might normalize their relations with Hamas, with Israel. Now, once that happened, that means they become a lot of jitters in the Arab world, especially among the Palestinians. And the Hamas, which was fighting 4 wars, 5 wars with Israel all the time, and has been designated as a terror outfit, decided to undertake these terror attacks against Israel. And as you all know, that was on October 7th when 1,200 Israelis were killed and several 250 plus hostages were taken by them. This was the biggest operation of its kind and the worst impact on Israel. And Israel, once again, chose the same to punish the whole population, and that after 2 years, the war is continuing despite some 55,000 people being killed, millions displaced, and a large number of people have been suffering due to the humanitarian catastrophe. Iran in this time continued to support Hamas. And as I said, Hezbollah in Lebanon and Syria continued to maintain pressure all along after October 7th on Israel. Finally, Israel decided to take out Hezbollah's top leadership, decapitation strategy as it is called, and really gave them a big battering in the meantime. And then Houthis, on their part, also activated, but they also started attacking commercial shipping, especially that is connected to Israel in any way or the West even. Finally, the United States, as you know, decided to cut a deal with the Houthis in the last time, even though they sent their ships, but they cut a deal with them. And since then, the US and the Western ships were not hit, except those which were Israeli, with Israeli flag. So that is the kind of situation that was happening. Now, during all this time, occasionally, Israel wanted to drag Iran into it. And the reason was that, like, if you remember, there was the Iranian embassy in Damascus that was hit, and 6 of their IRGC commanders and others who were visiting in Damascus were killed. And then finally, we have seen what happened in Syria. You had a new government of Al-Shara, another group which is anti-Iran, has come to power. But Israel is not very comfortable with them, at least for now. But that has created a very major problem for Iran in the region, because Iran used to have a direct access to Lebanon and Hezbollah through Syria. Now that has been now denied to them. And then finally, this Ismail Haniyeh, who was a leader of Hamas, was killed when he was attending the procession for when their Iranian president was killed in a helicopter attack, and he was eliminated there inside Tehran in a very secure location. Now you can imagine, and after that, Iranian had to take some kind of a revenge, and they hit Israeli targets, and so both sides kept on exchanging volleys, but it was limited in the scope. And as far as one can tell, they had exchanged information about these attacks way in advance to each other. Therefore, we did not see much damage being done on either side. It was very nominal to both sides. But it showed the capacity of Iran. Israeli capacity, nobody has a question and doubt. that Iran was able to penetrate the Iron Dome, all the other kind of THAADs and other systems that prevent the projectiles from coming in. So at a time, Israel has been fighting several wars. It's fighting on the front with Hezbollah, with Lebanon, Syria. It's fighting in Palestine. It's fighting in West Bank, and now it is directly and Houthis, and now it's directly attacked the Iranian nuclear site on June 30th. Now, June 13th is very important in the sense because United States under President Trump, first time when he came to power in 2018, he junked that Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which was a nuclear deal signed by United States plus E3. E3 means France, Germany, and UK, and the European Union, which was signed in 2015. And then it was junked by President Trump in 2018. Thereafter, President Biden tried to revive it, but did not work out. And then we saw President Trump, when he came to power, once again, he agreed to work and talk to Khamenei and his people about the nuclear deal, in which they kept on changing the goalpost. Now, goalpost is what Iran said, that we have never walked out of the treaty. That is very much there. But this particular 3 years or 4 years provided Iran an opportunity to further enrich its uranium. And so today, Iran is said to be 60-70% of enrichment potential. And there are reports that Iran had the capacity to manufacture weapon grade or weapons if it did. Now, Israel, as you know, is a nuclear weapon country. It is not a part of the non-proliferation treaty, even though Iran is. And if you are a part of the NPT, then you are subjected to all the regulations by the International Atomic Energy Agency and the regular inspections. Recently, there was a report by the IAEA in which they said that not enough cooperation was forthcoming, and they were not happy with the way things were going on in Iran. Now, Israeli intelligence, which is extremely good, as you can see that they were able to kill the top commanders of Iran and top nuclear scientists. It's not from now. It has been going on in a clandestine manner for a very long time. Israel's one quest with regard to Iran has been that Iran should not be able to have any parity with Israel as far as the nuclear domain is concerned. It was also worried that if United States is able to sign the deal, which he was earlier able to junk, would be a big setback to it. So finally, after 5 rounds, it was decided that there would be another meeting, last meeting probably, on last Sunday, between Steve Witkoff, who is the Middle East Special Envoy of United States, with his counterpart, Foreign Minister Aragachi of Iran in Oman. But before that could happen, we have seen on 13 June, Israel decided to attack the nuclear facilities in Iran, and then also took out its leaders and the scientists that happened. So thereafter, Iran also attacked the Israeli facilities, and you have heard from Dr. Jaswal about whatever all happened. Now we are here on the 8th or 9th day of it. Now, over this time, we have seen that Israel also has been hit very badly. It was not only Iran, which has lost, of course, the population, the people who died in Iran are far more compared to the casualties that are being reported out of Israel. But Iran has also been able to penetrate once again all the major protection that Israel had, and finally it is heard that they were unable to basically protect themselves. And this happened yesterday night. We have seen, or early this morning, that at the request of the Israelis, President Trump, who has been toying with the idea of diplomacy because he seems to be against the conventional wars. He seems to be against the wars. But then we have seen that this time, once again, he has succumbed to it, and he has bombed, according to their own admission. And I think in about an hour's time, the Defense Secretary will be briefing exact achievements that they had during this. So they attacked 3 nuclear facilities, enrichment facilities also, centrifuges and others, which is Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordo. Now, Fordo is very difficult because it is in the mountains, way deep, and Iranians say that not much damage has been done to them, and they don't see any sign of radiation in the place. But this is a very dangerous thing, which means that these kind of attacks, what they indicate? They indicate that there is a complete defiance of the international law. When you are part of the IAEA, when the inspections are going on, when your own National Intelligence Agency director is admitting that Iran is not having any nuclear weapons, or for that matter, the Director General of the IAEA saying that they have not seen any systematic program in Iran for developing a nuclear weapon. Now, that means it reminds you once again that they are making the same mistake that they had done earlier in the case of Iraq invasion, where evidence was manufactured of the weapons of mass destruction, which eventually came out. But by then it is too late. The whole region has been destabilized. Then there was also talk of regime change. Now, regime change is they wanted to kill Khamenei. Now, in the meantime, what Mr. Khamenei has done is he has passed on all the military powers to IRGC, Revolutionary Guard commanders, and he has designated his successors in case he is eliminated by Israel. But apparently, the Americans have still not given the green signal, but we should not be surprised. Last week, the President Trump said that he's giving 2 weeks as the Iranian foreign minister was talking to his German, French, and British counterparts in Geneva and trying to find a way out as to some diplomacy can work together or some kind of a deal can be arranged. But then at the same time, we have seen that the American assets were moving into the region. Now, what happens? That after these attacks, Iran has, most of the Arab world have condemned it. Yesterday, there was a meeting of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. All Arab countries from the 13th June have been condemning the Israeli attacks on Iran and its sovereignty and territorial integrity, because they don't want to become the peace in this war between Iran and Israel. But we are looking at a bigger escalation. This morning, after the attacks, Iran also attacked the Israelis once again. They still have a very large scale reserve of their different kind of missiles. They don't have a good air power, which is why you will hear from the Israelis that they have a full domination of Iranian skies. But they also have significant access to the Israeli strategic assets through their own missile systems, which have been able to defy all kinds of Iron Domes and THAAD and others. So we are looking at this thing now. How do we see the role of other countries? US, we have seen, is US is basic fundamental part of US foreign policy, irrespective of the president or whichever party is in power, is the safety, security, stability of Israel in the Middle East is their fundamental thing. So whoever is there, they will come to the rescue of Israel eventually. There have been reports that President Trump does not quite like Netanyahu, who has often defied him. But then when it comes to question of Israel, there is a very strong Jewish lobby there, and then they have their own interests and in the region, and they know that they are allies, as Netanyahu calls it, the not only ironclad, but the best alliance or whatever it is. So we are looking at that. What happens to Russia and China? Now, Russia obviously is stuck in its own war for last 3 years. We have seen that the Russians have been condemning, wanting no escalation. President Putin has spoken to President Trump and has said that he can act as a mediator between Israel. He's spoken to Israeli Prime Minister, the Iranian President, and they are trying to work on it. But does not seem like, even though they have a very important comprehensive security agreement with Iran, they are not in a position at the moment, it seems, to do anything big, except at the Security Council, where the meeting will take place soon. UN Secretary General obviously has condemned these attacks, and he has said this is very irresponsible of a P5 country to do so. Now, in that sense, now Iran, what is Iran doing? Iran has started threatening once again. And if it carried out threats, it said every um, asset, American asset in the region is a fair target for them, and so are the American citizens. There are 40,000 Americans forces in the region. There are their embassies, there are their bases, 25 bases in the region, and therefore it could escalate anytime, voluntarily or unwillingly, because in these kind of wars you cannot really control who's going to be hit, when, and how. So that is why it is quite possible that the war could expand to include other Middle Eastern Gulf countries who are as such very worried, and they have been telling America not to escalate it. But the escalation, Americans have done it, and they think that by doing so and asking Iran for its abject surrender, it will comply. I doubt very much so that will happen. But definitely there has to be some way found for the region to stabilize itself. What we might see is, once again, the Houthis will start attacking ships in the Red Sea, and we will see that Bab al Mandab might be stopped. Then Iran has also been talking about Hormuz, through which 20%, Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the oil and gas all the countries goes through. If it closes that, and I hear some news that it's already done today, if that is done, then you are going to have a major global value supply chain problem, especially for the oil dependent economies, including that of India. Although we have diversified our imports from Russia mainly for 45%, something like that. We have increased it in June further, in any case. But at the same time, we have about 9.5 million people. And from India's perspective, I'm talking about, we have about 9.5 million people. Their safety security is very important. Recently, from Iran, we have evacuated Indian, Nepalese, Sri Lankans, and also from Israel. They are being evacuated, and India is working on it as ever. Another, apart from energy security, normally we were importing about 60-70% of our requirement from the region, and also sharing that with our Nepalese friends. That will have to be diverted now. Then economic engagement that has been expanding is a problem. For India, both Israel and Iran are two very important strategic partners. And also in the context of the ease of navigation or sea lanes of communications, or for that matter, connectivity projects. While through Chabahar and International North-South Transport Corridor, we have with Iran and Russia a very close partnership. We are planning to have this IMEC, in which India, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel, up to Greece, were supposed to be the partners in that. And so both are very important countries from India's point of view, and India has offered to help facilitate some kind of an rapprochement if possible, or sit-down dialogue. Diplomacy has been prescribed, but in such situations, there does not seem to be much scope for that. Now, we have to see now how many other countries in the region have been playing. You have heard about Pakistan recently, that Pakistan first attempt when Israel attacked Iran, their statements came from there that if Iran is attacked by Israel through a nuclear bomb, then Pakistan will attack Israel. Of course, immediately after that, we saw that General Asim Munir was in White House meeting President Trump and other senior officials, and apparently they working some deal, because in case the war expands, Pakistan would become again strategically important for United States to launch attacks against Iran. Of course, today's statement they have also condemned once again. At the OIC meeting also they have said they stand with Islam. Pakistan has also the nuclear power. It has flagged its nuclear weapon as the Islamic bomb, and therefore it says that it is willing to support Iran. But this is something different. We can talk about if you have any questions. Europeans, their role has been very amorphous in this whole thing. They have been part of it. And Iran felt cheated by them because when the US started putting sanctions and Iran did not walk out of the deal, it expected that the European countries will continue to work with them, trade with them, and continue to honor that treaty. That did not happen. Even the Europeans said that they are going to work out some other kind of a payment mechanism. Again, that did not function. And once again, what we are looking at is even though Israel has attacked, wanted to take out the nuclear weapon capability of Iranians, uh, only Iran is being accused by the Western countries. I mean, that's the hypocrisy of it all. So we see a lot of double standards and hypocrisy, but at the same time, both are trying to exercise their right of defense, which has been thoroughly misused at a time when the world is going through a terrible, terrible fiasco. And this is the most dangerous time that we have. China has very close relations. There are reports that Chinese have been providing some equipment and others, but at the same time, they are going to play a bigger role in the United Nations. I don't have a great hope in that for the simple reason that whenever there is a P5 country involved, you can be rest assured that there may be talks, but nothing is going to come out of it. So I think that this is the current situation. It is still evolving, but from all accounts, it looks like that there is a chances of a much bigger escalation going forward. Only one point, and since I'm a diplomat, I always look for a hopeful exit to a situation. It looks like to me, I don't know if it's true or not, that this is Iranians are reporting that not much damage has been done to those three facilities. It is possible, and it is a conspiracy theory, it is not a fact, that there was some kind of an understanding that just for an off ramp for Israel to claim its victory, that it has been able to take out the Iranian nuclear sites, the US to say that it has also helped in that or has taken out, and Iran retaliating against it, against Israel, and showed Israel that it is an equal match to Israeli capabilities. Now, they are trying to possibly, hopefully, they are trying to find a way forward so that some kind of a deal is there. Iran has said it doesn't want a nuclear weapon, but this war has ironically once again proved that nuclear weapon, ironically, is a deterrence of choice, as the Ukrainians say themselves that they had given up and they are repenting. Iran says it did not have. That's the reason that the Americans, everybody came to do so. And so we are in a very, very volatile situation at the moment. It is still evolving. It is difficult to say which way it will go. But let us hope for peace because this is going to be an extremely difficult time for us in the region because Asia is very well connected in that. And most of the countries in the region are also dependent a great deal on the Middle East for their manpower, for their oil and gas supplies, and for remittances, which are very important. So I'll stop here and I'll be very happy to answer questions.
Thank you, sir. Ambassador Anil Trigunayat, thank you so much for very comprehensive remarks. It was really insightful. We have received lots of questions, so let me take maybe one or two questions first. There has been reports that the US silently informed Iran about today's bombing beforehand. It has not been confirmed officially by both sides, but satellite images have shown increased activity in the nuclear sites targeted today, like there were many bulldozers and trucks in those areas. Do you think US or the Trump administration does not want war, but is being concerned by Israel to get involved? That is one. Second, how do
I
you...
have just,
Yes.
okay. I have just, my closing remarks, as you know, that I said conspiracy theory, that is exactly what I said. And that apparently there has been some understanding and providing an off ramp. So I would not discount it completely. And I would personally hope it is true. Because if it is true, then there could be a possibility of a de escalation rather quickly.
Thank you, sir. Let me move to the second question. How do you see the policies of the Trump administration going forward, as you can now visibly see a divide going between the hawks like Ted Cruz and isolationists like Tucker Carlson?
Well, it's not only Tucker Carlson. It's used. If you just see 2 days ago or day before yesterday, I think Vice President J.D. Vance himself tweeted that I hope USA does not get involved in direct war with Iran. I mean, this is their vice president saying, I see that even defense secretary and others were not on the same page for this kind of an attack. Because United States today is the only hyperpower in the world. It also carries a lot of responsibility. It should not have the kind of mood swings to dictate the global peace. And that's precisely it has happened in this case. And therefore, there is President Trump has always said that he doesn't like wars, he doesn't want wars. So I don't know if there's kind of an understanding or uh, indications they gave to Iran that this is the way out of this whole thing. I don't know. I mean, I'm not privy to it, but if that was the case, then still there is some saving grace. But at the same time, it's a very unpredictable presidency of President Trump. He's only driven by MAGA, but this time the MAGA base is also against him totally because they don't want a war. They don't want to. You see, you can't win a country by air missiles. Just you can pound it. We have seen what is happening in Gaza for so long. We have seen what happened to Iraq, what happened to Libya. But at the same time, unless you are boots on ground, and I don't see that the USA is ready for boots on ground. So it could be just one of kind of a thing which they have said it is, and they're ready to come back if needed. So hopefully that will not happen, and both sides will find some way forward. The idea is that all the region in the country, all countries want a Middle East weapon-free zone. Now, if that happens, and somehow it will not happen because Israel is a nuclear power. So when it is a nuclear power, it is not part of the NPT, means it is not subjected to any inspections. So it has freedom to do. So therefore, there will always be other countries who will aspire to be nuclear power. So we are looking at a very volatile kind of a situation at the moment. But as far as President Trump is concerned, it is somewhat, he said 2 weeks. 2 weeks does not mean that he'll have to wait for 2 weeks. He could decide any time, but this was deception he deployed.
Thank you, sir. We have received lots of questions on India because most of the participants are from here. So the questions on like what role can India play in promoting peace in West Asia, especially given its neutral ties with both Iran and Israel? How does India stand on this? Others have said that Indian Prime Minister Modi have just tweeted, spoke with President of Iran. We discussed in detail about the current situation, expressed deep concern at the recent escalations, reiterated our call for immediate de-escalation, dialogue, and diplomacy as the way forward and for early resolution of regional peace, security, and stability. So, what can be the role of India at the moment?
Well, as you know, that from the very beginning, India has been propagating the dialogue and diplomacy in the region, the whole world, and especially the countries in Asia, West Asia. Everybody has been fearing this moment when Iran and Israel will have a direct war. I mean, that has been something that has been a worry of everyone. Everyone has been trying to avoid that. But that moment has come on us. But that has come mainly because Iran presumed that Israel presumed that Iran was ready with to make a weapon in 10 days' time and therefore wanted to take out. It could not. So it expected the Americans to come and help. And Americans obliged as expected. So India, in that sense, has been telling both the countries. Prime Minister Modi, as you rightly mentioned, has spoken to them. He has earlier spoken to Prime Minister Netanyahu also. Both the countries are very uh, close strategic partners. And I've already told you about India's role in that. But I think that uh, it is time now that perhaps India will depute somebody to go in between if there are chances, if we assess that the escalation and the war escalation ladder is coming down. At the moment, we are talking to both sides, and I'm sure that we'll have to talk to the Americans. And when a few days back, when Prime Minister Modi had a discussion with President Trump on phone, he also would have mentioned that we are talking to not only them but a lot of countries in the region can jointly help in de-escalating the situation.
So then a question on like from President Trump's decision to strike Iran has sparked mixed reaction even in domestic politics of the US, some lawmakers even calling it unconstitutional. Do you think the domestic phase of US politics will be shaping this conflict moving along at the moment?
Well, I think that he has a problem because 64% of the Americans are not in favor of this war. 64%. And if you were to look at going physically in that, boots on the ground, more than 80% of Americans are opposed to it. And out of those 64%, the number of the Republicans and the MAGA supporters the highest. They are against this war. So he has that problem. Secondly, this is also against the international regulation, the UN Security Council, UN charters, which is Article 2.4, which very clearly is being violated in that sense. You know, there is no base for sovereignty and territorial integrity of the countries. And the countries that are supposed to protect the UN Charter are the ones indulging through unilateralism and all that. So that's why there is a much greater problem. But when have the top mighty countries listened to the others? No, no, they don't care. They don't bother. But that's the realistic world we are living in, which is fractured. So today you don't have any international law worth the name, unfortunately. And that is why countries can get away with whatever they are doing, and they can move out. But at the same time, I'm sure that there will be some kind of a resolution or a press statement which will talk about de-escalation. And if Iranians do not take a reprisal in a much intense manner, there could be some possibility of returning to the table. And in which India is also helping. But of course, President Trump, this is his second term. He doesn't care. He's not going to come there third time. So he's doing what he pleases. But he is trying to say that I'm only working for America first. You know, when he was told that MAGA people are against you, he said, I created MAGA. Now, if that is the kind of an attitude, then there is no checks on him. It's only his close advisors who can advise him what is right and not be taken by impulses.
So we have received some question like IAEA says Iran is away from nuclear bomb. The US intelligence also says that Iran is not building a bomb, but Trump says that he doesn't believe it. So the question is, who does Trump believe in? Second, Trump knew that North Korea was building a nuclear bomb. Why didn't he do anything? US destroyed Saddam Hussein's Iraq under the false pretext of a bomb. So how does this justify Trump's behavior at the moment?
It does not justify. We have seen it all along. That not only Trump behavior, but the previous presidents all have gone into war, one way or the other. I have mentioned throughout my speech about the Iraq invasion, which I said mother of all evils, which caused a tremendous destabilization in in West Asia. We have seen it is not that the actors in West Asia are all normal actors. I mean, they are also uh, problematic in many ways, each of them, but the superpowers have greater responsibility on them. Similarly, I mean, you see, as far as the United States is concerned, I think that you see, this is the reason. I mean, North Korea is a nuclear country, right? So it flashes its a nuclear weapon. And they don't want Iran to get it because then it will bring parity with Israel, at least in the nuclear domain, which will be dangerous. This Netanyahu himself has said the most dangerous weapon in the hands of the most dangerous regime. Now, we don't know who's most dangerous today, but this is something that is a situation they're trying to protect and prevent, protect one and prevent the other. Where it is going to lead is something, if, I mean, in my view, if it does not get settled soon, it will conflagrate and involve the whole region. That will be one. Or if not now, then again, after some time, we'll have this because their rivalry that is based on this mad syndrome is unlikely to go away.
Thank you, sir. We have a very interesting question. We have received, in fact, Brahma Chalani, he has tweeted that it was America's long war in Afghanistan and Iraq that prevented the way for China's dramatic rise, that paved the way for China's dramatic rise. China has been the main beneficiary of US-Russia proxy war in Ukraine. Now, greater US entanglement in the Middle East will further serve Beijing's interest, emboldening a more aggressive revisionist China along India's border. So is China really beneficiary at the moment in the Middle East?
Well, I think in this one, I would beg to differ with Brahma. I have great respect for him as a good friend. But at the same time, the Middle East, China is very heavily invested in the Middle East. The whole of Middle East, including Israel and Iran, are part of his BRI project. So and plus they depend a great deal on the Iranian oil. And so if you think that this war will benefit China in one way or the other, is problematic presumption in my view. The reason is simple, that China will have an immediate problem. They'll have to ensure somehow they're getting 40% of Iranian oil, for that matter. If that gets stopped, they'll have a little problem. Likewise, their economy is already not doing that great. So no doubt, China is a very powerful country. It is not, and it has very close relations with Iran, by the way. So what US has done is not necessarily only for Israel, but US is every war. US is the one which wins. The reason is simple, because the military-industrial complex in the United States also dictates its foreign policy. Wherever there is a war, more orders are placed on the American companies. We have seen Russia-Ukraine war, the biggest beneficiary have been the US companies. So it is over time. We'll have to see how it plays out. But of course, there are countries who benefit from a war, and there are countries who lose in the war.
So let me take the last question because we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Like, do you see emerging regional actors like Qatar, Oman playing any meaningful role in mediating between Iran and Israel, especially as Western influence in the region becomes increasingly fragmented? Could a multipolar mediation framework succeed where bilateral diplomacy has failed?
Yeah, I don't see Qatar playing a great role, because Qatar does not have any diplomatic relationship with Israel in the first place. And Qatar is often accused by Israel of supporting Hamas and being close to Iran. As you know, Qatar and Iran share that the biggest gas field also. So they have close relations. UAE, which is a part of the, I would say, the I2U2, IMAC, and Abraham Accords, is better placed, because they are also very close to the Iranians. And Sheikh Zayed himself had condemned the Israeli attacks and expressed this. But I think that this whole thing can happen. Iranians and Americans were talking. They were looking for a peace, of some kind of a deal. Deal means peace. Deal means removing of the sanctions on Iran. The US shows interest. I also felt that perhaps the Russians would play a better role in this, as far as Iran is concerned, on behalf of Iran, and the US on behalf of Israel. So if they work together, which Putin has also offered to Trump, then there may be some possibility. Plus, as you know, the Russians have stakes there. The Bushehr nuclear power plant has been built by the Russians, and there are about 600 of their scientists are still continuing to work in that place. And there are about 2 million Russian origin speakers, Russian speakers in Israel. So both sides, it has stakes.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Anil Trigunayat, thank you so much for your time. It was a very interesting and insightful discussion. We still have lots of questions, but we have to keep it for some other days. We'd also like to thank all our participants for their participation and interesting questions. Thank you so much and have a nice day.